good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I see many searching for answers, far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide us with just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Oh, love. You're good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
And like many other teenagers, I've struggled with insecurity and self-worth a lot throughout my life. I've been at points where I sought so badly for validation from others that I lost sight of who I was and the person that I wanted to become. I grew to determine my self-worth based on the way other people judged it and not the way that I wanted to. And it started for me in middle school. You know, back then, if someone would have told me that I wasn't good enough at sports, then I wasn't. If somebody would have told me that I wasn't pretty enough, then I wasn't. If someone would have told me that I didn't dress cool enough or wear the right things, then I didn't. But it went beyond the things that people said about my appearances and my actions. If somebody told me I wasn't good enough, then I wasn't. If somebody told me I couldn't be fully forgiven from my mistakes, then I couldn't. If somebody told me I couldn't even be loved, then I couldn't. And suddenly all of these things, these words and these proclamations became so overwhelming and constant in my life that I slowly began to believe it. And that I was who everybody said I was. And soon those voices started to drown out the voice of God, the voice telling me that I am good enough, that I am valued, I am forgiven, and I am loved. What moved me to speak tonight is that I believe there's somebody here that is or used to be in the same boat that I was. Somebody here feels like they aren't good enough for God. And I came tonight to assure you that that's not true, And not just to tell you, but to show you why. So the first thing that helped me get to where I am today is learning and understanding God's forgiveness. And I think what I struggled with the most was that I misinterpreted God's thoughts of me for the thoughts of the people around me, like what I listed earlier. And the weight I carried from feeling like I was only ever a disappointment prohibited me from pursuing the path that God had called me to be on. The weight of my shame, my embarrassment, my insecurity held me in place in life, and I couldn't move forward. And now what I've learned is that if you can't take another step, and if you can't move yourself to the place that God has called you to be in, then the first thing you've got to do is turn that weight over to God. Don't run from it, and don't hide it from God. You need to face your shame and insecurities and lay them in front of Him. The power of God's forgiveness is nearly unfathomable, and it's often overlooked in our culture today even. We misinterpret God's forgiveness to be like the forgiveness demonstrated to us from other people. And I dare say that everybody here today has held a grudge on someone before. Like, let's be honest here. And it's hard for us to understand the full forgiveness of God when we have a hard time forgiving others that way ourselves. The verse that helped me the most to understand kind of how to navigate this was 2 Corinthians 5:17. And it reads, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, and behold, the new has come." When we're chasing and we're striving for a life with Christ and we're pursuing Him, the forgiveness He demonstrates towards us doesn't just forget about the past. It says the old has passed away. When He forgives you, the old you dies, and you become a new creation in Christ. Entirely new, so that you don't have to be tied down by your shame, and instead you can pursue a life that glorifies God. God loves us more than we may ever fully understand, and He hopes that we can turn to Him and experience full forgiveness and redemption through Him. Okay, so that was the first part. After I understood His forgiveness, it was kind of learning what to do with it. Now, after I was saved by His grace, I felt lost on where to go. Like, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I knew that I was forgiven, and I knew that I was free to pursue a life for God, but I had no idea where to start. I had always been so focused on the things that other people wanted me to pursue that I didn't know how to make decisions for myself anymore. The next step I had to make was changing my focus. Now, instead of finding comfort in the world, I needed to find strength and refuge in the Lord. And then the biggest struggle for me was that I wanted to be more. I wanted to be what God had called me to be. But because I didn't know what to do, I felt that I wasn't going to be good enough to serve Him. And you've probably heard this before, but God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. One of the first online sermons that I listened to a couple years ago was by Michael Todd. And in this particular one, he named off all of these people in the Bible that God had called and all the reasons why they would be viewed as unqualified by people. And a few of my favorite examples I remember he gave was Moses had a stutter, Jonah ran away from God, Rahab was a prostitute, Peter denied Jesus, Gideon was afraid, and so many more. And yet, even though all of those people had something that puts doubts on their abilities to do what God has called them to, all of them still did it. He used every single one of those people to advance the gospel in one way or another. God has a plan for you. We know He doesn't make mistakes. So how are we going to follow a God that makes no mistakes, but still think that He messed up with calling us to something? He has a plan for you and you specifically. Even though you may be insecure, even though you've made mistakes, even though you don't always feel good enough, even though you may not always feel qualified, God has a plan for you, a plan that He is going to walk with you through if you just put your faith in Him. God is an all-knowing God and knows every detail of your past, present, and future. And He still loves you and wants a relationship with you more than anything. So when we leave here tonight, I just pray that anyone carrying a weight on them, a heaviness that's holding them back, I pray that you can surrender that to God and allow Him to take that weight off of you so that you may walk in a newness of light, enabling you to live a life that glorifies God. Thank you.
I've gone to church my entire life, but I've never really felt like the presence of God like there. I just went because, at the beginning I went because my friends went, because my mom wanted me to go, and I just went so I could have fun and hang out with my friends for a few hours. While I was struggling, I would pray sometimes, but not all the time, and I wouldn't really pay attention during church, and I always thought that other people were struggling more than me and that their problems were worse than mine, that other people had stuff that were more important than me. And every year my church goes to church camp, and I've gone for 4 years, and it's about a week long, and I would just go to hang out with my friends. I would have my friends come. But this year I actually tried and paid attention, and I've tried recently. And in the chapel, the preacher was talking about people's worth and how even if you don't feel God's presence, he's still there and he always wants to listen. And he said that everyone has their own problems, whether they're struggling with their mental health, their family problems, family members, something physical. And you don't always have to talk about it with your friends or to your pastors, but you can talk about it to yourself because God's always with you. And he talked about how everyone was important with their own kinds of things. And in the Bible, Luke 12, verses 6 or 7, it says, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins? Yet not one of them is forgotten before God. But the hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore you are of more value than many sparrows." This is talking about how God cared about birds so much, and how he knows every single hair on your head, and how you're important too and all your problems. And yeah.
And I just wanted to eat my food and watch YouTube, but I was like, whatever, Dad, I'll talk. If you want to talk, we can talk. So we started talking, and he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know, Dad, it was a rough day, it was a hard day. I just didn't want to deal with people, felt like I had to just choose a lot of things. And he was like, okay, well, what's wrong with choosing? Like, do you not know what you want to do? And I was like, Dad, I just feel like there's a lot of expectation on me. That a lot of people from different areas of my life are telling me where I need to go, what my next step needs to be. And so that's the title of this tonight, is Next Step. Now, I know it's for seniors especially, and those younger classmen, they start on you quick. They're like, you need to know what you need to do. But seniors really, this may hit more home for you. They always tell you need to know what you're going to do. You need to know what you're going to be when you grow up. You need to know your next step. You need to know what you're doing next, especially out of high school. In senior year, you get so much shoved down your throat. You get scholarships, colleges, schools, applications, and that's what I was just feeling overwhelmed with. We had just been talked to about FAFSA, and I was like, oh, this is real. This is, you're always like, oh, I'll do it later, but then it's later, and now you hate it, and now you have to fill out applications and do resumes and remember everything you've ever done in any club ever, and it sucks. So yeah. Life is busy. I get that. I'm involved in a lot of things. I like to be involved. I think it's fun. I think it's good to be involved. It keeps you busy, gets you connected in your community, but it's a trade. It takes a lot of time. School takes a lot of time, especially if you're in some high-level classes, but even if you're not, a lot of teachers give out a lot of assignments and feels like they don't remember that you have 7 other classes, but it's okay. So we're pretty busy. We get a lot of assignments, we get a lot of papers, writing, and you can get caught up in it. A lot of homework, especially if you're in a sport. I am currently not in a sport, but I do 2 sports. But so you go from school to a sport, and then you go do your homework because you have to turn that in the morning because it's due at 8 a.m. or midnight that night. So you go do that, and then, whoa, what's this? I have no time left. Oh, I can't pray, I can't read my Bible. But we all know if we check our screen time on our phones, that is not true. At least for me, I don't know about you guys. But so we feel like we're running out of time. We feel like we're too busy. We feel like we don't have enough time for God. We don't have enough time for our Bible, for prayer. And I'm not saying that school and sports are a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to know what you're going to do next. It's not a bad thing to listen to those around you. I'm not saying that. No. I'm just saying that maybe we need to listen to God. So, even if you don't have all those people telling you something, maybe you have your parents, right? I'm lucky. I'm really, really lucky. I have 2 parents that are willing to support me through anything. And they are willing to support me no matter what I choose. And so, luckily, I have a dad that's willing to sit down with me and talk because I feel overwhelmed. And walk me through it and point me towards God. And I know everyone doesn't have that. And I know a lot of people's parents, they put pressure on them. They put labels on them on what they need to be, who they need to grow up to be, what they need to do in their life. Oh, your grades aren't high enough. What are you doing? Are you slacking off? What's wrong? You know, a lot of parents are like that. And that sucks. That really does. Which is why we need to turn to what God says for us to do. And that comes in Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6, which is actually verses my dad shared with me. And that says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths." So, he literally says, if you want to know where to go, if you want to make that path straight, now I don't know about you, it's hard to follow a windy road rather than a straight one. Everyone loves the highway because it's easy. We just need to not lean on our own understandings. A lot of us think we're smart. I like to think I'm kind of smart. Now, that's not humble, I understand that, but I like to think I know what I'm doing. I've grown up in the church. So I like to think, oh yeah, I know some verses, I know God, but we start putting too much on ourselves. We're like, oh, but I can do it. I can just survive one more day. I can do one more week, one more year, one high school. Once I get out of high school, it'll be fine. We just put all this weight on ourselves. We think we can just make it through, just survive. But that's not what he tells us. God tells us to not lean on our own understanding, and that through all ways we acknowledge him. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really acknowledging God in all my ways, especially in my school life. It's kind of hard to do that when you're not really surrounded by it. But that's not what God calls us to do, and sometimes things are hard in life. Next. One thing I would like to say is you need people around you. If we're not to lean on our own understanding, then who are we to lean on? Now, one way I would like to use, like an analogy, I guess, is it's kind of like if you have a doctor. Let's say God's the doctor, and he tells you have a sprained ankle. You can't walk on it. Now, I know from experience, if you try to go play sports on a sprained ankle, it just gets worse. And it doesn't feel good. No, not at all. And it's really hard to take steps. So what does he do? He prescribes you a crutch. Now, God has prescribed us a crutch of the church, of the people around us. He tells us to surround ourselves with godly people, people that will point him towards him. So if we're not using that crutch with our sprained ankle, if we're just trying to hobble through life, trying to make it, and we're not using that crutch, we look real dumb, guys. We look really dumb. People will make fun of you, I promise. And so we need to use our crutch. If we're just going through life without a crutch, without people, then it's hard. It hurts. It's painful. And I guess this could also all be tied into identity, if you wanted, because apparently that's the theme. But, so I just wanted to leave with you guys that it's okay to not know. It's okay that even though you feel overwhelmed and pushed from every direction, that you have people to lean on. And you need to find people you can lean on. Godly people that will push you in the right direction. If you get people who aren't pushing you in the right direction, it's kind of like somebody stomping on your ankle. So, I mean, you don't want that. So, yeah. That's all I have. And thank you.